Good evening. You're listening to the Extreme Movie Show. Tonight's episode, Xtreme TV. Tonight we're going to be discussing Cobra Kai Season 3, Episodes 9 and 10. I'm your host, Rob. I have with me RDB and Professor Pixel. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we this evening?
Doing good.
Doing peach keen.
Well, I'm glad to see that you guys aren't knocked out by all the action twists and turns that have happened here in Episodes 9 and 10, because I tell you, I think there's some pretty bad stuff in these two episodes, and I feel actually a little let down with the execution of it all. I enjoyed where it's going, but let's just dive right into 9 and 10. And I think the most obvious place to start, leaving the fights for last and the whole crease angle, is let's just go ahead and get Allie out of the way and talk about that. Elizabeth Shue's character comes back. Obviously, she's the kind of the centerpiece, that the whole myth of Johnny and LaRusso, and how she was with one of them and went with the other one. And I've maintained that the whole idea here is that the real problem starts with everybody because of a woman. And I'm looking at Allie, who's getting divorced, and she's still attractive and this and that, and she just wants a wild night out. So she tries to hook up with Johnny a la Facebook, and they go out and have this sort of cutesy sort of date or like that. And I just kept thinking to myself, okay, he's stooping Miguel's mom now. Okay, that's cool. That happened organically, did not feel rushed. He's not committed to her, doesn't have to be. So whether we're trying to bring morals in here or not, it's weird seeing Johnny in a situation where he seems so uncomfortable and nervous with Allie doing it. And the vibe I get from her is, and I don't know if this is intentional, I just feel like she's playing both these guys, especially when we get to the country club and the women meet and talk. I really just did not like this at all. What do you guys think about her?
I think she still kind of has a thing for Johnny, but realized that he's with someone who respects that, and she's realized he's grown up. So she was just kind of there as like, well, we reviewed that Afterlife. She's basically like the lady that talks to Anthony in that show at the cemetery. She gives him advice. That's all she's there for. They're not going to do that because she's not going to be in the next season. It's just, she's going to go home. She was just there to basically set him straight and to teach him, hey, you guys are a lot alike, whether you want to admit it or not. And that kind of prompts them to work together a little bit. So yeah, her being there was actually cool, a nod too, but it also had a reason though. She was just there to like, hey Johnny, let's go hook up. But I think if he wasn't dating that other girl, the mom, Miguel's mom, they probably would have got together.
Oh yeah, they definitely would have. But no, I don't even feel that. She's there for one reason and one reason alone, to finally put aside the Daniel and Johnny rivalry. It was time to nip it in the bud, and that's basically what happens at the end of the country club. It's the first occasion where Johnny and Daniel get together and they don't actually have a huge fight about anything.
Yeah, I think she did a good job playing that, because I definitely feel like, even though she wanted the hot Johnny surprise, if you know what I'm saying, I kept looking at this going, as bad as LaRusso is sometimes, there's times when he really doesn't bother me at all. And I agree with the explanation you guys have about them kind of just saying, okay, yeah, the flip sides of the same coin, thanks to her presentation in front of the ladies, I guess, or whatever. But it seemed like one of those girl power kind of things. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I look at LaRusso's wife and I go, as far as the outer package goes, and LaRusso, they just don't have any chemistry. He doesn't look. It looks to me, it looks like he married up, but I really don't know her background. Maybe they'll get more of that in the season 4, because I think relationship-wise, no matter what happens here, LaRusso's and his wife, they're like supposedly the perfect couple, and then you see Johnny and Allie, and it's like, okay, I figured he'd be pissed because of what happened before, and I don't know, it just doesn't work at all. And I think even though it's done tastefully, where they don't drag it out forever, it's yet another relationship that doesn't seem to have any zest behind it at all. It's nice seeing her. It's a nice little nostalgia pop, but like the rest of season 3, I've said before, kind of getting a bit grounded. Wow, couldn't see that one coming. Just like, Sam and Robbie now hooking back up together again. Gee, never thought about that. Or I'm sorry, Sam and Miguel. And then Robbie's still a punk. I mean, so the relationship part here in 9 and 10, I think it's the flattest of the 3 seasons in general. Before we even talk about the fighting and the fallout, I don't know. That's been the biggest disappointment to me. So I want to touch on that. What do you guys think?
No, I don't find it a disappointment at all because it's not supposed to be a relationship. It's them getting together and reminiscing. That's what the whole point of the episode is. With episode 9, it's them reconnecting, and it's not building into a relationship or anything. It's so that Johnny can officially move on. And well, we'll talk about later what that leads to.
Yeah, I just, I've been saying, go ahead.
I was gonna say I have to respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Rob. I thought that yes, Robert. No, Daniel and his wife. I don't really see that. I mean, yeah, they had their issues, but now she realized how much of a creep Kreese is and what Daniel's going through, trying to save his business and all that stuff. Dealing with Sam. I see them being on the same level now. Now, do I see him being like, doing what she says? No, and being like a little bitch. No, they're equals. But as far as the whole thing with Elizabeth Shue's character coming back, like you said, it is, yeah, is he kind of remembers, them being, they dated, for a while, and it gives a backstory of how he met his wife, basically, she broke up with him because he became just like Johnny. He became controlling. He saw her talking to another guy, got jealous. And yeah, does that seem realistic? Because it happens in our world,
I agree that it does, but from what we know about Johnny as a character, he had any babe that he wanted. And yeah, he got pissed that she left, and that's why, of course, with LaRusso ended up beating him up. But then he moved on. Of course, he got married.
Well, I'm talking about Daniel, not Johnny.
I'm talking about Johnny because that's what I was going to say with Johnny is it doesn't. That's the problem with both of them. Really, is I think Allie's exposing both of them for, just not having great relationships. And so with Johnny, it's like I just don't see, based on what we've experienced with Johnny since the start of season 1, that he gets so nervous and excited over somebody that kind of screwed him and left him for Daniel. That's my whole point.
Well, Johnny's a simp. Johnny is such a pushover. He let Kreese, the whole movie, basically control and manipulate his moves. He finally got a girl that he liked, but he ended up losing her because he was listening to Kreese. He didn't have self-confidence.
Well, that's against the sensei. I think that Allie shows him being a pushover, specifically in that scene where she's getting ready to meet him, and he's listening to millennial hair bun guy or whatever talking about having a vegan soy whatever kind of thingy.
That's because
Johnny wouldn't do that. The Johnny I know that I've seen would not be a pushover socially, is what I'm saying.
Well, maybe Johnny also wouldn't be teaching Miguel then.
This isn't just anybody. This is the person that they said it, that they thought was the one years ago. And it was somebody, your first love is important. It's something that impacts your life completely. It's always going to be there, lingering.
I wasn't feeling it. It just seemed forced. It made Johnny not seem like Johnny. And it just magnified LaRusso and his wife just being kind of, So that's what I'm saying in general. And while those are valid points, and I think that's the whole purpose of coming back to this nostalgia thing. I mentioned before how most 80s music's been missing in here. And I'm not saying they have to have it, but they've had a lot more of it. But it just seems like it's noticeably absent. So even though you've got a lot of 80s relationship kind of callback nostalgia elements in here, especially specifically LaRusso and everything that he went through for those couple episodes, and now you've got Allie. This should be the most retro kind of, I think, feeling season of the 3, and it just, like I said, it just felt a little flat to me, and maybe I'm in a minority with that, but I always found that the adults' relationships are more interesting than the kids because the kids are switching around so much too, but let's say
high school, bro.
Well, it's more like middle school. and these people are supposed to be in high school, so they just seem a little even more immature than high schoolers.
It's just the way kids are. You can't fault them for being what they are.
I'm not faulting them. I'm simply pointing out what it seems like, because it's one thing if it's one season, but we're 3 seasons in now. So, like I say, that the season 3 is really kind of coming.
You also got to realize that you've been out of school for a while. Times have changed. The way people are doing this, social construct as far as how people get together and stuff. It's not the same as it was when you were back in high school during the 80s.
Well, that's a different conversation for another time. That being said, I do want to bring up some of the stuff before we get into the grand finale and how the season finishes up, because they always do a good job of leaving you on a cliffhanger, which I think is the smart thing play. We talked about before how Johnny had his own little, what does he call it, Eagle Claw or something like that, some really stupid name for the new dojo, and they're practicing out in the park, so you're seeing everything go by. I had said before that this season officially you can call Kreese the bad guy, legitimately, because of bad coaching, being a bad influence, and allowing his students to do bad things. You can argue and debate about whether it's good coaching or not, to show no mercy and to finish the job like he was taught, and he's teaching what he knows by today's standards that may not be considered allowable, and things definitely have changed over the years. So they could have milked that a little bit, but I think they really paint Kreese in the corner here because of the way that dojo that he's now in charge of is going about doing all these things. We talked about the big fight at the little golf workplace there too, where it's Sam Riley the troops, and she seemed to actually show some fortitude. But in here, you get the kids on their own. This is where I say they're turning into hooligans because of Kreese, and he's contributing to it. Makes me not like him and feel disappointed in the way that they've dealt with Kreese up to now, especially with this backstory we've been shown. They've done a very good job of it. It was a letdown for me because the kids go and they steal that snake from the zoo and they bring it back to him. It's like, oh, you guys are doing a good job and all that. He kind of pops for the fact that they did something on their own. And you can see Hawk kind of struggling with certain things there too. And you see Tori getting more committed. And then you see, of course, Robbie, again, none of us seem to really care about him that much, going to go over to Kreese. And it's like, yeah, not seeing, a surprise in here at all. And I'm not saying you have to be totally surprised and shocked like it's a daytime soap opera, even though it feels like it, but you just know that there's going to be the big confrontation between both groups, and we're going to get it. So we might as well go there, guys. I mean, what do you think about the way the two teams basically draw a line in the sand before they get into the big fight?
Do you mean Cobra Kai and Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do?
Yeah, I call it the kids fight before the adult fight. That's how I was thinking of it.
Okay, well, the kids fight was intense because those, oh my gosh, I don't know, I wasn't here for the last week, so I don't know what y'all said about Tori or anything. But as soon as she was in there and she's looking at him, okay, LaRusso, where are you? And these kids are just bad. And the only surprise that I have to say is I didn't expect Hawk to turn back to the light. I didn't see it coming.
Because he'd get that little crybaby tear look in his eye almost, and you could see like his lip twitch a little bit. And they did it several times over a few episodes.
You saw when he broke?
Yeah, but at the same time.
No. So when he went and broke Dimitri's arm, he felt bad about it. He paused, and then he finally did it, but then Kreese brings in the bullies that used to harass him, call him, lip, or they call him, I forget what they call them, but.
Yeah, I remember, but then during that fight, he brutally beats up the one previous bully, and it just looks like I didn't expect him to go to the light. No. I didn't see that coming because he was beyond redemption for me, but I guess
he's taking his crap out on the bully that used to harass both of them, him and Dimitri. You saw him, the guy was beating the crap out of Miguel, and he's like, you know what? Yeah, he could have just beat him up, but the problem is if he stayed on Kreese's side, he would have to go against Robbie because him and Robbie are at odds. He hates Robbie. Robbie's a special boy. I really looked at him and said, remember, he was the leader after Miguel left. So, of course, it makes more sense for him to, go on to the heel side because he never really convincing as a punk, as a bad kid. He was just doing it because peer pressure.
You know, there's another element we didn't talk about because we jumped straight to the fight. Robbie, or a little earlier, I think in episode 9, Sam and Miguel are basically at Miyagi-Do talking and then sparring together. And then they do end up having like the usual, oh, we're close together now. And then Robbie sees them and then gets in his face. This is the kid that he kicked off of a floor. He broke his back. He almost lost his life. This is the kid he almost killed, and he's like, I'm hoping you would say that. No, Robbie's just a piece of shit.
Wasn't that the previous episode? Wasn't that like that wasn't these last 2 episodes?
That was episode 9.
You sure?
Wasn't it?
Because I thought episode 8 he came and confronted them while they're kissing.
Oh, sorry. I watched 3 episodes last night. So
no worries. Well,
that's my bad.
It brings up the point of this because you're absolutely right. We don't care about Robbie. The most redeeming quality about Robbie is he seems like he's pretty street smart, and he doesn't seem like he's a bad guy, but it seems like he knows he's making really bad decisions and doesn't seem to care because he's so butthurt about everything, and that's why we don't like him because he's being a punk. So to me, okay, I guess that's fine. It's just Sam doesn't seem like she should be with any of these guys. She just,
well, that's all what she was.
Well,
actually, in episode 9, what Daniel tells Sam that pretty much. He's like, first you were with Miguel, then you got with Robbie, and now you're back to Miguel. It feels like you should be taking some time.
And as I said to Daniel, who is the grown man still having a rivalry over a girl? Has been in the picture for the longest time. Okay,
but it's a lot more than it just being about the girl isn't exactly correct when it comes to Danny and Johnny. And episode 9 proves that, back to the previous point, that
they're both dicks.
They both went into a situation. Allie points out there's your side, and then the truth.
Yep.
Because
here's what I want to point out about the fight. The way a lot of these long drawn out fights are filmed, I like, because yes, there's some cutting. It's not the horrible shaky cam of, like, say, a lot of action movies that been the past 20 years. I'm looking at you, Born Identity 2, and from then on, it seems like. So there's a flow to them, and there's sometimes these long drawn-out shots, like in hallways and corridors. And, of course, you've got something going on in the foreground. You got something going on in the background, and you see it. So I like that. I appreciate that, because sometimes when I'm watching, I can stop, rewind, and instead of watching the main fight going on, you can see what's going on in the back. And there's some neat scenes. I will say this. I like how the fight was at the Russo's house, and I like how it was different, and the adults weren't involved. This was kind of cool to me, and I like how we got 2 fights.
It was a very good fight.
Yeah. Out of this fight, though, I think it's the worst fight out of any of the fights that I've seen this entire episode and series, season, whatever you want to call it, the entire show for all 3 seasons. There's so many things where it looks like they're going slower. It looks like they're not even making contact, and I know they're really not, but just the way it films, it just looks sluggish. It looks slow. It's by far the worst fight. It's visually still the same as the other fight.
Disney.
It's worse. It's like yes, it's make believe. It's scripted. We all understand it, but it was so bad I could not. It's like watching people do wire work in martial arts movies. I don't want to see it. Now on Kicking It, you and I, RDV, over the years, we've talked about a lot of 80s action stuff. We talked about most of the practical effects and stunts are phenomenal, specifically like Chuck Norris jumping through the car, doing this and that. But in here, I like the fight. I don't care about Hawk going to the good side, but just the fight made me go, eh.
Well, that's been Cobra Kai for the past, season and a half before this, all the way up through, because it's this Hollywood version of martial arts. This isn't what you get if you do Hong Kong with Jackie Chan's production stuff, where they actually know what they're doing. these are kids. They're doing the basic as moves they can, but then they have like stunt doubles probably coming in, and actually doing the stuff.
I'm glad you mentioned stunt double because that is something that we have to talk about here. So let's move on to pretty much the grand finale, the adult fight where we see Johnny going in to get his son, confronting Kreese.
This is my
Robbie
favorite part.
pops in, and then LaRusso shows up.
Yeah,
All I'm going to sit there and say is I understand Martin Krogh, who plays Kreese, is like 70, 72, still looks fairly decent, has a pretty respectable facelift. Just being honest here, physically doesn't look that horrible. I mean, he still has that gaze, that intensity that we like. I think they would have done better keeping him off screen more to keep that a little bit more scary than now. But boy, his stunt double looked about 50 years younger, had a much different haircut, and even though the filming of them fighting, from the back room where they met, going back to the main room or whatever, it's a good-looking fight the way it's staged. I'm like, I like what you guys storyboarded, but watching this guy whose head and neck and hair is a lot shorter and arms, it was even worse than the kids fight. I have to say that. And then Robbie, when Johnny is like, that was actually the best part of the fight to me, is when Johnny goes, come on, Robbie, I'm not going to fight you. And Robbie's going at him, and he's like stepping backwards like it's slow-mo. It's like, wow, Robbie doesn't know shit compared to his dad. And then his dad kind of unintentionally knocks him out.
He's like, oh, I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I liked what happened. I kind of excited, but I was underwhelmed. What's that?
I was overwhelmed. I was like, finally, yes, knocked him out. This kid's causing so much grief. From day one, him, doing drugs and stealing stuff, and just misbehaving and stuff. He just causes dad. He blames dad for everything he does. I'm like, yeah, you little bitch, you finally got knocked out by your dad. Pussy. Sorry.
I don't know. I don't know about y'all. I guess maybe I'm just not paying enough attention because I don't see that. I'm watching the action scenes and I'm enjoying the thrill of it, but I'm not seeing all the errors. I'm not looking for them, I guess.
I didn't say it was an error. No, I didn't say it was an error at all. Maybe if you're referring to Rob, what Rob said, but I'm just saying I like the fact that Robbie finally got shut up by his old man.
Well, yeah, no, I like that too. No, I'm talking about
as far as errors. Cool. Yes, it's obvious. When you watch, Rob and I have been spending how many hours just watching actual real martial arts, and then you go to watch American Hollywood stuff. How they slow it down, especially in the fight with all the kids. It was so obvious how it's slowing down. They're like, "Oh, I kicked you. Oh, you broke my leg." It's just like, oh, it's just horrendous. It's like I felt like I was watching like Kicking It on Disney.
That's wrong. That is so wrong because you know why? Because it was coming out while I was still a kid, so I actually saw episodes of that show. No, it wasn't like that at all.
I'm sorry that you're offended. I forgot you're a minor.
Well, what did we think? I mean, with the way it ended, where LaRusso shows up or whatever like that, and then he ends up fighting Kreese a little bit. I mean, they did a good job holding LaRusso to not having to do too much because it's not very believable with him and his age and all that. I mean, Ralph Macchio doesn't really know martial arts. He's not really an athlete per se. But I actually thought that was his best looking karate stuff actually when he puts Kreese to sleep, or at least his limbs for a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was great. Getting back to, I just want to explain, as much as I crap on the martial arts in this show, it doesn't take away from the show for me. I still enjoy the show.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'm just simply saying, like, this whole season, I think the theme to me is that it came down to earth because I'm not saying that they've rested on their laurels, but right now there's nothing really new that they can do where we go, I wonder if they could do this successfully or that. So now you really, I think, have to focus on the quality. And I hope
did like the fact that people are going through tables. I was like, that's new. Like the one kid got thrown through the glass. They're here.
This season has really been the aftermath of the school fight. That's what it's been all about.
It's basically it's gonna be at the school, but they have no chaperones now, so it's unchaperoned fighting.
No, I mean that the school fight that they had at the end of season 2 led to all of these events. And that's why that's why the tournament has been pushed back for the next season, because this whole thing is dealing with the fallout of that fight.
But see, you know the difference between this and back in the 1980s? Back in the 80s, they didn't care if the kids got into fights as long as they got good grades and passed.
No,
Welcome to 2020, man.
the difference is then, back in the 80s, you still had in some places where you were going to get paddled, and there was a lot more harsher restrictions of it. If you got kicked out of school, you almost never came back. I can tell you specifically that there were certain things that changed in the 90s as far as the way discipline's been handled across the board nationally, not just in Florida, but everywhere as far as it comes to school discipline. There are kids today in middle school that been arrested, been assaulted, been caught with guns and all that. And, they're back at the same schools, sometimes with the same teachers and all that too. So no, but it's not even close to being the same there too. If you used language in a classroom back in the 80s, unless it was high school and a teacher looked at you and gave you that look back then, oh no, you got in trouble, and people would call your parents, and parents seem to care more about you making them look like an ass and having to stop to work and come there. Now it's not like that, and so everything's considered permissive and all that. But oh no, you did not mess around like that in high school. So I'm going to totally disagree with you on that. It's been so lenient and all that. It's not even close. And and the reality of it is with what happened at the end of season 2, which was very dramatic and shocking. I think a great way to end the season 2. I think they could have milked it more, because that would have been a lot more intense. Here, it almost seems like an afterthought. Oh yeah, okay, he broke his back, he was paralyzed. Okay, now he's good. It's been a few weeks or whatever. It's been there too. Oh, we'll get to go through
it's different. It's different.
We also deal with that this episode, or these episodes, I suppose. No, I could be trailing back into episode 8. Sorry, because Miguel, he hasn't been able to properly perform with his legs.
Right.
And he actually gets a few kicks in on the guy after this guy is hounding on his back.
After internal bleeding, yes.
I
4 kicks, not even one kick where he's being kicked in the kidney and the liver, he would have been dead. For how hard that guy was kicking him.
Well, let's just kind of finish up here with our overall thoughts.
What's that, Rob?
So let's go ahead and finish up with our overall thoughts on the season. I pretty much just gave you mine. I still say, despite me taking the negative possible approach compared to you two in general over the past season here, I still enjoyed the season. I still liked it. I still think it's some of the best writing and that's been on TV, specifically on Netflix, that it has to offer. I think they may have some more freedom on Netflix than maybe they didn't have when it was back on YouTube. So I'm really curious to see what they have with season 4 coming up. I think that when they had wrapped, of course, season 3, I don't know if COVID interfered with what they were trying to do, and maybe that lent to some things that maybe they weren't wanting to do but felt forced that they had to complete or something for season 3. Not sure. That being said, overall, I still think season 3 is good. I just think it's the worst of the 3. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing or whatever, but yeah, I still liked it. I'm really curious because they're almost running out of things they can do other than Kreese bringing back maybe another person from the past, say from movie 3, which you guys may not know. We'll see how that develops. But what about you guys for your final thoughts?
Final thoughts is that it was actually pretty good ending, solid ending. He's always calling his buddy. He's like, it's like, hey, I'm outnumbered. I need your help. But I said, I love the fact that we get the flashback of Kreese about his, we learn about why he is the way he is, They're fighting above a freaking snake pit, with cobras and all that stuff in there. Him and his buddies in Vietnam. And he goes, and the one guy is afraid, doesn't go, so Kreese volunteers. And then he has to fight against his commander, the one he's basically, been hounding him, chiding the whole entire time. It's your fault that, he died and all, blah, blah. It's like, strike first, no mercy, you coward. And I love, they're fighting, and then, the guy, he's fighting dirty against Kreese, and then Kreese ends up getting the upper hand. And so the guy's hanging there, he loses his balance, and he's hanging there by his hands, by the bridge, little wooden bridge. And also you see the Hueys fly over, the guys are being, the house has been blown up. It's basically like, watching a Chuck Norris movie at this point. Mission in action. You're seeing the little houses being blown up by missiles and stuff, guys getting killed. And he's like, yeah, yeah, we're saved now. Here, Kreese, pull me up. Kreese, pull me up. He's like, no mercy. Kicks him into the snake pit. I was like, dude, because the reason he is mad at him because he basically on the way walking up to the pit, he said like, oh, I just let you know you're not gonna survive this anyway. He's like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, your wife died. You know, she died. I don't want to tell you because you're weak. You know, you would have killed yourself. You would be bad for everybody else. You would, you know. But he's like, at this point, I guess it didn't make a difference at all because you're still a freaking coward and weak. You know. So yeah. Kreese just kills him and it's like, and then he helps his buddies and locks the cage and lets them out. And then and the guy's like the guy who basically Kreese volunteered to fight for. He's like, thank you, I owe my life. You know, you just anything you need me to do, you just call me up, I'll be there. So then I'm curious though if this guy is gonna like what his role is gonna be in the next season though, because he's kind of a coward in the back of Vietnam. So has he changed then? Is he like another martial arts? Has Kreese started his own dojo after Vietnam? Or we get that where Kreese, this guy originally was going to be in Cobra Kai. You know, we don't know.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen the third film, it's different, and it's certainly almost 10 years after the first movie came out, early to mid 90s, if I remember correctly. It's a little different. It's a little more mature than what you expect from Ralph Macchio. So if you haven't seen it, that might explain a lot there too. What about you, Pixel? For your final thoughts?
I've really enjoyed the season. I'm sad that I have no more to watch.
I still say they should have put it out one episode at a time.
I agree, but that's a different topic entirely about how they release television. So
well, yeah, that happened, ladies and gentlemen. Cobra Kai Season 3, Episodes 9 and 10, finishing up our review of Cobra Kai here on Xtreme TV. I'd like to thank RDV and Professor Pixel for showing up, as well as all of you out there listening, sharing, getting the word out about us too. So check us out next week when we have another show that we're going to be discussing. Until then, for RDV, Professor Pixel, and myself, everybody here at the Xtreme Movie Show, have a good night. As always, stay extreme.